When Kena was first revealed at one of the PlayStation 5 events, it immediately caught my eye. The visuals were pleasant and it was an original IP, not a remake, remaster, or a sequel, something completely new. Based off the early footage, it looked like the gameplay would be a mixture of an action-adventure title with some Pikmin-like elements. The lack of constant coverage towards the release of the game was something that was sending up some potential red flags. But now I can honestly say that Kena is easily one of 2021's best games. It borrows much of its gameplay from other action-adventure games, while showing how to implement them in a unique experience. I really enjoyed this one. Kena Bridge of Spirits does a really good job of pulling the player in right away. There's some mystery presented to the player, and it isn't long until you get to some engaging gameplay. The bulk of the gameplay is centered around the combat. You start off with a light and heavy attack that you can chain together for different combos, along with charging up for some hits to do a lot more damage. As the campaign continues, you will earn some more tools to assist you, like a bow and arrow for ranged attacks, along with a useful bomb for blowing off armor or hurting more than one enemy at once. Hitting enemies both looks and sounds great. There's some nice impact sound effects that really sell your strikes. For defense, you have a lot of options as well. You have a dodge roll along with a rechargeable shield, and if you can time the shield just right, you can pull off a parry and get a nice counter hit in. The enemy variety is decent with small enemies, bombers, range fighters, flyers, mini bosses, and others. The combat is really good right out of the gate, and it slowly gets better as you expand your arsenal with some more tools like the bow and arrow. Generally, the boss fights are very enjoyable as well. These fights can really catch you off guard, and even on normal, they are not a cakewalk. Some need better balancing and presenting some of their attacks better to the player, but most of the boss fights require the player to either adapt on the fly or learn from their failure to succeed at a second attempt. While there is frustration that is found within a handful of these encounters, I found a lot of this challenge to be a welcome aspect about the game. There's many bosses within the game, and it's quite impressive that each one doesn't feel like another. Each one feels like an individual climactic encounter. There is a small element of problem solving, as in some cases you need to figure out how to actually damage your opponent. For example, you may need to time a hit with a boss that is teleporting, or another where you need to use your bombs to expose a weak point. Both learning from death and being able to learn on the fly to defeat the bosses is very rewarding. One big part about the gameplay relates to the rot. These are the cute little creatures that you will find on your adventure. They can help you out in both combat and in exploration. When it comes to the combat, the rot can be used to distract enemies and bosses, allowing you to get several hits in. Along with this, you can use the rot to perform harder hitting strikes, like sending out more powerful arrows. The rot will be your main means to expose weak points to destroy the larger foes, along with cleansing the land of the corruption. For the exploration side of things, you can use the rot to move objects in the environment to allow you to have new jumping points and clearing paths. The use of the rod is very specific, meaning that there are specific uses of them for the combat along with the exploration. This means that the game is nothing like Pikmin in how you can use them, but they do follow you around wherever you go. The exploration is another positive aspect to the game, in that it feels mostly like this focused linear experience that allows for some light exploration with finding hidden items. You will find items that belong to citizens of the village that need to move on. You can return these items to their home for a reward. Also, there's plenty of chests to find, and some even require you to defeat a set amount of enemies, under some conditions that help to change up the normal encounters. My favorite parts about the exploration are that you need to do some problem solving to get through some of the environment. Sometimes you might need to use the rot in a different way than you did before, like using the rot to move an object closer to a larger one, so that you can jump on top of it and then command the rot to move the larger pillar to another position. position. The light problem solving is fun and a good aspect about the game. It is fun to venture off the main path and see if there is a flower for you to shoot to teleport to, or an object that you can bomb to open up a new place to jump up onto. There is a form of progression in the two types of currencies that you will earn. One is used to buy different hats for your rot, and the other is more useful in that you can unlock different moves and skills to assist you. When it comes to the gameplay, Kena is a really good time.
The rot seem quite fond of you. They're usually timid. Something tells me you did not come to our village looking for forest creatures.
Hello, Spirit. I seek passage to the Sacred Mountain Shrine.
Our village is bound to the shrine's energy, but that power faded long ago.
Overall, I really enjoyed the story within the game. It is inviting right from the start, and it's full of moments of sadness, forgiveness, and some wholesomeness. Most of the story is spent following Kena as she tries to help the people of this land, and along with helping to rid it of its corruption. She needs to help some of the people here essentially find peace and move on. I really liked how you will see a set of clips whenever you start focusing on a new person to help. You see images, but they are all out of context. This helps to create some nice mystery with each character. The presentation and the cutscenes are really impressive, from the well-animated visuals along with the camera work. My only real issue, or rather element I wish to see more of in this story, related to Kena herself and her backstory. We mostly see how she is helping other people and get hints of her past. I wish the game spent more on her so that we could get attached to her specifically as a character. I found myself easily attaching to the different people she would help, but I wish that she received more development. Maybe that is something that is for a potential sequel. This is less of a flaw in the story and more of a personal preference of mine. I found the world very interesting and wish that I got to know Kena a bit more. When it comes to the flaws within the game, these mostly relate to the boss fights. I found that 2/3 of the fights were fun, challenging, and engaging. I enjoyed trying to learn the moves to find a weak point, but some of the bosses have a handful of cheap moves that either do too much damage or are hard to read to effectively block. For example, some of the enemies have these attacks that seem to mostly connect with me, causing damage even if I roll out of the way. Almost like the attacks are homing in right on me regardless of what I do. I felt this way about one encounter where the boss had a whip and could cheaply grab me to do a lot of damage. Also, this might be another odd comment and again be a mixture of a flaw and a preference, but I found this game to actually have a few too many bosses to fight. There are times where you go from one boss to another one. About towards the final third of the game, I wish that some of these fights were combined into one. It is impressive how many unique boss encounters that you encounter in this game, but I think decreasing the number by a few and refining more of them could have helped in this area. Outside of this, Kena provides a very good action-adventure experience. Along with this, the soundtrack is superb with great tunes for the exploration, fights, and epic moments. Here are a few tracks from the game. Kena Bridge of Spirits is one of 2021's best games. In some ways, it's a throwback title with it feeling like an old-school action-adventure game. The combat and exploration are really good with a wonderful art style and presentation that helps Kena to stand out from its contemporaries. While I had some issues with parts of the story along with some of the boss fights, and while this game is made by a smaller team, it does not feel like a new team's first game. In many ways, Kena feels like a game that was made by a bunch of industry veterans. If this is their first game, I cannot wait to see what they will do next. Essentially, Kena is an indie experience with the polish and presentation that you would expect from a big AAA release. I recommend Kena, and thank you very much for watching.